Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 20th of May of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And of course the most important and the most interesting update is coming from Bakhmut. As a result of 224 days of storming operation of this town, the Wagners managed to capture this town. And today the head of Wagner's, Prigozhin, made a video about that. He was holding the Russian flag, and behind him we can see a lot of Russian forces, Russian soldiers. Mainly this is like the units of Wagner PMC, and he was talking a lot, and he was talking about Bakhmut, he was talking about the president of Russian Federation, he talked a lot of things about the Minister of Defense Shoigu and the head of the Russian army Gerasimov, head of headquarters and so on, and he was talking not a very good thing about these two persons. But anyway, Bakhmut has fallen. And there are a lot of interesting things about Bakhmut, about this entire procedure and so on. First of all, after that euphoria of a few hours after Bakhmut fell, we need to understand few things, and this is very bad things and very bad signs for the Russians and for the Russian army. And the thing is that Bakhmut is the greatest battle of the special military operation. And Prigozhin, yes, he's head of Wagner's. He was the person who controlled and organized the storming operation of this town and so on. And he was exactly the person who captured this town with his forces, with Wagner force and so on. But you need to understand one thing, that according to the classification and according to the power level of power that people around Putin holds, he is not the person who should have reported about the capturing of Bakhmut. Yes, if you ask normal people or single people, if you ask me, my opinion that it is his responsibility, that was his victory, and he is the guy who reported and who should report about the situation. But based on the logic, based on the level of power, the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation Shoigu and probably the head of Russian army Gerasimov are the person who should have reported the victory in front of Putin. So probably there is some kind of conflict, and there is a conflict. We know that there is a conflict between Prigozhin, the Minister of Defense, and probably Prigozhin wanted to personally to report Putin about the victory in Bakhmut, but as I understand, the head of Russian army Gerasimov and the Shoigu didn't allow him to do this. Because if you saw the report of Minister of Defense of Russian Federation for the 20th of May, they haven't included the information about the fall of Bakhmut. And I believe that by the time they made that report, they knew that Bakhmut has fell. Probably they wanted to make some kind of celebration. Probably they wanted to make everything secured and to make a show. Probably they wanted to make a video where the Minister of Defense and the head of Russian army Gerasimov were reporting to Putin or something like this. Another thing is that, as you know, exactly a year ago, the Russian forces under control and command, let's say, of Shoigu captured Bakhmut, and the 20th of May currently is the victory day of Mariupol battle. So probably this is the second reason why the Minister of Defense didn't want to combine these two dates at the same day, because that was a very big battle for Mariupol, and currently now we understand the battle for Bakhmut covers the battle of Mariupol, and probably the Russian military authorities wanted to split these two dates into, let's say, on the 20th is the victory of Mariupol battle, the 21st is the victory of Bakhmut, and today Prigozhin ruined the plans of the Minister of Defense and so on, and it's probably this is not a very good idea from his side. But anyway, as I understand, he wanted to report to Putin personally, but his plan was ruined, and I believe that tomorrow the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, or maybe this evening, will report to the President of Russian Federation about the fall of Bakhmut, because one more time, when talking about the report, we haven't seen this information. So officially, when talking about official information, the Russians still haven't officially confirmed that Bakhmut was taken by the Russians. Just Prigozhin and when from legal perspective, he doesn't have power to do such kind of announcements. Of course, we understand, and everybody understands that the Bakhmut fell and the Wagner's captured this town, but this is a very interesting note and so on. And to tell the truth, I'm very interested in the reaction of Vladimir Putin, because I believe that he's going to have his own speech, some kind of his own understanding of the situation. I'm very interested in this. Furthermore, I expect the reaction of the Minister of Russian Federation Shoigu and the head of Russian headquarters Gerasimov. Furthermore, interesting updates still coming from Gerasimov, Zaluzhny, the head of Ukrainian army. And if you remember, if you saw the video, Prigozhin also was talking about the Zaluzhny, and he asked Zelensky to say hello, my dear friend Zaluzhny, if he can see him, but also Prigozhin one more time added that probably Zaluzhny is wounded or something like this. And after the video of Bakhmut, video of Prigozhin, the Russian sources started publish some kind of confirmations that currently Zaluzhny is located in Kiev. The Russians are saying, and he is wounded, and Zaluzhny is located in hospital, and Zaluzhny is in reanimation, and currently the doctors are fighting for his life. He is not dead, but he is not like, he can't functionate, and he is wounded, he's reanimation, and this is the story about him. And of course, it's not appropriate joke about Zaluzhny. Of course, it's always someone's life and something like this. But imagine yourself, before Zaluzhny got under fire and got into reanimation, Bakhmut was under Ukrainian control. And when he recovers and will open his eyes, he will see that almost like half of Ukraine will be captured by the Russians. So it's a joke, but anyway, it's a very terrible situation. And as we see, at the most terrible, the most difficult moment of Ukrainian forces, the head of Ukrainian army was wounded, and currently the entire army is headless or something like this. Now let's return back to Bakhmut and let's talk about the vicinity of Bakhmut and the situation in this area. Furthermore, the Russians, as a result of fierce fightings, managed to capture as well Khromovo. We discussed this situation in the previous video, this small block on the north, and have already marked this area. The Russians managed to capture during the day the MiG-17 statue, and the Russians managed to capture the residential area in the south, so this one. So this is the progress of Wagner's for today. And as we can see from this video, and according to this map, and based on the Prigozhin words, we see that Prigozhin reported he's going to leave Bakhmut and Wagner's by the 25th of May. And we understand that highly unlikely the Russians are able to capture Ivanovska within the next 5 days, because there are fields, open air, and I don't think that Wagner's are going to storm. They captured Bakhmut and they need some rest, so probably Ivanovska will be taken by the next forces who will replace Wagner's. And there are two options. The first option is that if Wagner's will be replaced by the Akhmat Special Unit, then the Akhmat Special Forces will continue offensive operation, and during the next month or two they will try to capture the towns that located, let's say, from Orekhovo-Vasilyevka, this town, and Orekhovo-Vasilyevka, Gryanikovka, Kalinovka, Kanal, Ivanovska, these towns. So this is probably the target of the Akhmat Special Unit if they will replace Wagner's in Bakhmut. But if Wagner's will be replaced by the forces of Russian army, to tell the truth, I'll give you my opinion. This is complete speculation. Highly unlikely the Russian forces will continue attack this area with the same like pressure, with the same intensifying, because this is a storming operation, and this is suicide operation. This is suicide operation, and there is just one army in the world who can complete this suicide operation, and I'm talking about Wagner's. I'm not sure that the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation will go on such a risk, but probably I'm mistaken, and probably they will continue. But anyway, no matter the progress in Ivanovska, Kalinovka, Bogdanovka, Gryanovka, Orekhovo, Vasilyevka, we understand that if Khromovo was taken, and if the information about Khromovo is correct, so that means that the entire bridgehead of the Ukrainian forces that they managed to establish during the previous days, I'm talking about this bridgehead that Ukrainians managed to establish as a result of, let's say, previous counteroffensive operation will be collapsed automatically because it's very difficult to hold. Currently, the Russians are able to continue advancing from Khromovo, and they will attack right in their back, and they can cut the entire supply support, and at least the bridgehead that located on the south of the railroad will be captured by Russians and Russian forces, and you don't need to, it's not like a suicide operation. This is like the easiest part of the possible next further movements in direction of the channel. And when talking about the bridgehead between the Berkhovskaya water reservoir and the railroad ways, probably the Ukrainians will be able to hold for a while, but anyway, also the Russian forces, and I'm talking about the 200th motorized brigade, probably will take and will try to capture this area and to force the Ukrainians to step back from these positions. Very interesting situation with the south, and today is very difficult to understand what is going to be next, because as soon as Wagner's will be removed from this area, probably the Ukrainians will continue the pressure and continue their attacks, their offensive operation. And from the other side, of course, we understand that probably the words of Prigozhin that the Wagners are going to be replaced and leave Bakhmut is some kind of media thing, and they're trying to force the Ukrainians to think like this and to force the Ukrainians to launch the suicide offensive operation on the flanks, where they will be completely defeated, destroyed, and as a result of these battles, the Wagners will be make a counter-offensive and reach the channel on the Ukrainian shoulders. A lot of options, a lot of speculations. Anyway, when we are basing our logic on facts, we understand that Wagners are not going to capture Ivanovska within the next 5 days, because according to the official, their positions, they will be replaced, and the Russians, of course, within the next months also are not able to capture, because it will be a completely new and fresh forces here, and of course they need time to get used to the situation, and maybe after that they will launch and capture this area. So probably I'm just trying to say that I expect, and it's my opinion, and probably the reality can be completely different from my opinion, I expect a small operational pause for 2 or 3 weeks on this front line. And the Russians, as soon as the Russians get used to the situation, maybe after that they will launch offensive operation with the Russian regular army, and they will try to continue further and to capture Chasiv Yar or something like this. Another interesting updates are coming from Avdiivka, and probably as a result of offensive operation of 140th motorized brigade in the vicinity of Krasnogorovka, the Russians also managed to develop the bridgehead and to get closer to Achertina along the railroad ways. So probably this is the current situation, and this is the current progress of the Russians. They captured the area between the railroad ways and got as close as possible to Achertina, and we understand the real reason of that. The thing is that this area, I will mark it with the blue line, this area is the hill, is the highest position in this area, this one, and probably from this position the Russians are going and are planning to establish fire and physical control, fire control, artillery control over the road that connects Achertina with Novokalinova. As in Novokalinova is under protection as 110th Brigade, at least a few parts, and today the Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of artillery duels, artillery attack, they managed to destroy another 2 ammo depots of this brigade. So probably I expect some kind of activation of the Russian forces on this bridgehead in this area with attempt to establish control over Novokalinova, Keramik, complete establish of control over this area. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, by the way, split the Donbas front line in 2 parts. Currently there are 2 front lines in this area, the entire Donbas front line and tactical bridgehead, tactical area Artyomovsk. Currently they're calling this town as Artyomovsk, and the Russians are saying that as a result of fierce fightings on Donbas front, Donetsk front line, the Ukrainians lost 210 soldiers, and about Artyomov the Ukrainians lost 95 soldiers. As you can see, there are still heavy clashes in the level of loss of Ukrainians in the vicinity of Donetsk. And furthermore, the Russians are saying that they also continue and start advancing or another attempts to complete the Marinka offensive operation, and currently the Russians are trying to encircle and to complete the creation of cauldron in this area, and to do this they're trying to advance from the south and from the north. If you remember, a few days ago we published a video from the western part of Marinka where the Russians were using the very heavy artillery shells, munitions, and if you remember, a few days ago we got an update that Ukrainians took a decision to leave and they evacuate the rest of the 79th Air Assault Brigade to the west part and to the vicinity of Georgievka and to the fields between, let's say, Marinka and let's say Kurakhova, so in this area. When talking about Ugledar, there are no changes, just regular clashes and activities, and the same situation, no updates. The Russians are saying, when talking about South Donetsk area, the Russians are South Zaporozhye area, the Russians are saying that Ukrainians completed the creation and of their forces in this area, and the Ukrainians are ready to start counter-offensive operation. Probably the loss of battle of Bakhmut will be some kind of trigger for the Ukrainian forces in this area, and we need to expect that within the next 24 hours the Ukrainians will try to attack, and at least they will try to send their first wave of attack in this area, and we'll see whether they're able to do anything or not. But as you know, yesterday the Ukrainians were promised to get F-16, and for example today the Ukrainian authorities are saying that F-16 is going to be a game changer, and using the F-16 they will be able to win this war and to force the Russians to step back. Also, another interesting update is that the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, for example, today reported that during the previous 24 hours the Russians managed to shut down 12 missiles of HIMARS and Storm Shadow, so it's a very big number of missiles, and the Ukrainians were attacking the Mariupol right at the anniversary of liberation, or like of this town. If you remember, as we discussed a year ago, this town was taken by the Russians, and today the Ukrainians took a decision to say hello, to say my dear friends to Mariupol by sending at least 12 missiles. All of them was shut down according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, but yesterday there was explosions in the old airport that located in the western part of Mariupol. For now we don't have more updates what did happen there, so but probably we are going to see within the next hours if anybody can provide any evidence of anything. So this is about the situation. When talking about Kupiansk and Liman front line, there are no changes on the ground, no changes in this area, just local heavy clashes in the vicinity of Dvorechne, Novoselovska, Liman. For example, the Western sources are saying that the Russians managed to advance a little bit in the Kremenaya forest, and that the Russians managed to get the, let's say, the outskirts, or currently the Russians are able even to see the Grigorovka, this one, the town that located on the south of Kremenaya forest. Then currently they got like the outskirts of this area, but for now we still haven't received any evidence of that, so we'll see whether it's true or it's not. Probably if they have some evidence they will provide us. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.